Hello，大家好，欢迎来到李丁聊天室。今天我们是做的第一期英文的播客，因为有一个非常合适的嘉宾来聊一聊他在美国做投资房的一些经历。Cuong. Hi, Cuong. Thanks for joining this episode to talk about your experience with investment property in the United States.
A pleasure to be here.
Yeah, do you want to give a just brief introduction to say hi to everyone?
Sure. My name is Cuong, research scientist at work, and outside work, newbie investor. I just want to say, I'm still fairly new to real estate, and happy to be here and share whatever I know with you guys.
Yeah, sure. So in the past few years, I started working. I also started to look into how to diversify my investment portfolio. So do you mind sharing a bit about what general does your assets distribution look like?
So right now, it's about I guess around 40% real estate and 60% stock. This number may change over the year. Like maybe I have like 10% cash. But usually when I have extra cash, I put them into real estate if I can.
I see. And so for me, I haven't really started any investments in real estate. So why do you choose this around 40%? That's a significant amount of your assets in real estate.
Yeah. Well, it really just comes down to personal choice, I think. There's a lot of online resources that compare real estate and stock, and they all have their own pros and cons. But for me, I like real estate because of many different reasons. So maybe I can go through one of them. So one is the first thing I like about it is is leverage. Which means that you can apply for financing for a mortgage to help with your investment, and it's a really cool idea because once you have mortgage, you have a way of earning money with more value than the money that you put into. So for concrete example, let's say you buy a property that values at 1 million, right? And you, for some reason, you qualify for a 10% mortgage. So you spend 100K, but you spend 100K, but you bought a property that valued at 1 million. And now that if you find a way to make this property work for you, like earn income for as an example, suddenly you have an asset that produce value at 10 times the money you put into. And I thought that's a really cool idea. And applying for mortgage is just like one way to approach leverage in real estate. There are many different strategies. One other thing I really like is once you have a property, you could do things like applying for a loan based on that property to take some cash out. And it creates a really interesting cycle where you invest in one property, you do some work to increase value, and then you are able to take the money out and reuse that money for the next deal. I think that idea is really cool, and it's just really hard to do that in stock. I haven't heard anybody applying a mortgage to invest in stock market before, and I don't think lender likes that idea. It's just too risky.
Yeah.
So that's leverage. And feel free to jump in when I talk. There's just a long list.
Yeah, and what are you mentioned one of the pros for real estate to have leverage. Basically, you invest in 1/10, or maybe in reality it's more close to 1/5 or a quarter of the total valuation, and then you get 4 to 5 times of the assets. So that's a benefit. But what are the downsides compared with stock or other form of investments?
Oh yeah, it has a lot of downsides too. Like environment risk. You never know when there's an earthquake, right? Or tsunami or tornado. You never know. So environment and geographical hazard is a big risk. But city improve themselves, for example, flood is quite a big deal in places like Texas. But most cities have been spending lots of money on building levee or flood prevention system. for earthquake, you can do like retrofitting to reduce the risk, but again, it's a pretty big risk. The other downside is liquidation. It's just not easy to liquidate, which means to sell your asset and get cash back if you want to. It takes a while to sell, but it depends. Right now, the market's really hard. If you list your house, you'll be able to sell it. I'm pretty sure it depends a lot on the market. And so you can't really the speed at which you can sell your asset and get money back is very, very slow. But it's not a big deal for me. That's why I said it's really a personal choice. The third downside, I guess, is just it requires a lot of reading and preparation. But it's actually a thing I really like about real estate. When you buy a property, you just need to read a lot about the market, about the property. You really need to do your homework. But if you do it well, it really pays off. It's kind of a downside and plus side at the same time.
Yeah, I love that you bring up this reading aspect because the reason why I started this conversation is because I'm looking at some investment property opportunities and I realized a lot of good books out there and I start reading some of them and I also list some of them in the show notes for the audience. So one of them I happen to read it today is called Long Distance Real Estate Investing, and it basically talks about So basically it talks about like why you should look out of state investments. So, which brings me to the question. So, like, which states were you primarily invested in? You live in California, right? Do you invest in California or mostly out of state?
My first deal is an out of state. I did the deal in Oregon, and that was like our first time going into this, and there was a lot of hiccup. But yeah, I read that book, and we apply a lot of what in that book into that deal, and it turned out very well. But to be honest, I now that I have time to like look back and like reflect on that, I don't think I do it again. Unless maybe because the market right now is just too hot and everything's so expensive. Because going out of state is just like a lot of work. We were lucky to find a property that like we don't really have to do much with it even now. But then it's just really hard to scale up, which means to buy more in the same market because that market is really hot right now. So it's impossible to find something.
So you mentioned the Oregon one. If you have to revisit, you might not make the same decision today. So why did you make that decision in the first place? Like according to the book, like one of the criteria we look at is the rent to price ratio, and some sort. Is that one has like great numbers, and that's why kind of what motivated you to invest in the first place?
Well, it was my first deal ever, and what motivated me was really just learning. That's how I'm still thinking about it. Still, again, like I'm a very new investor. I've done only 2 deals so far. So whatever I do right now is just for learning. And so that's my first deal. So I pick a market where like I feel like I have enough money to go into. Portland, Oregon is hard, but it's not like insanely competitive compared to Seattle and SF, right? So it is enough for me to go into, and I know the area really well. I went to school in Portland State, so like I know the area inside and out. And we found a really good agent, and I treated the whole thing just like a learning experience, and just didn't care much about number. But we were lucky because we looked really hard and we found a property that like all the numbers just check, and it was really nice. It has some problem, and I would say it's a fixer, but not really a fixer. So enough problems for us to solve and learn the whole process, buy, rehab, and renovate and rent out without having to like get too much headache on the whole fixing stuff.
Yeah. So I know this might be a lot of overlap with the book. So let's say if I want to get into this investment property business, so what should I be looking for as my very first deal? 谢谢各位的观看和收听，以上就是这一期的缩减版。For the full version, please check out the link in the show notes. 在这期的后半部分，我和Cuong聊到了投资房地产的最重要的第一步是什么？ Airbnb 会越来越像长租吗？ LLC 怎么保护landlord？ 感兴趣的观众可以移步lidingzeyu.com收看后半部分。目前内测期间完整版内容免费订阅，先到先得，链接在下方show notes当中。我们下期再见。